Ready to have a deeper conversation about body and soul, sacred leadership, and our collective evolution? Welcome to the Wise Body Ancient Soul podcast with me, your host, Charisse Sisou. I'm so excited to welcome our next guest, Sandi Isgro, president of the American Society of Dowsers. To introduce her, I will use Sandi's own words. She writes, I was introduced to dowsing several years ago at a retreat where the instructor used L-rods to place a labyrinth. When the rods magically moved in my hands, I was hooked, and I have been dowsing ever since. It's been a pleasure to teach dowsing to others and watch them discover that aha moment for themselves. As a member of Vermont Vibrations, I was part of a research project investigating the use of runic energies and their incorporation into labyrinths. I enjoy dowsing earth energies to find water, create sacred space, and co-create healthier living spaces. Please welcome Sandi Isgro. Oh, and before we dive into her interview, I just feel compelled to share. We did have some little technical issues, so the sound is not always pristine, and I just ask, please bear with us and listen anyway, because there's some amazing ancient wisdom that we're bringing forward in this episode, and Sandi is such an expert. A rare and wonderful expert in this intersection of dowsing and labyrinth. So be warned and enjoy. Your bio, you talk about the first time that you were introduced to dowsing rods in placing a labyrinth. Tell me more about that experience. Yeah.
Well, it was one of those things, out of body, out of mind. I went to a retreat that was put on by the Spirit of Change magazine, and it was at a boys' camp in upstate New York, in very rustic log cabins, big tall old trees. It was an older camp, and I got there just in time for dinner. And I wanted to do a sweat lodge because I'd had some stuff going on and I wanted just to get rid of all the old baggage. And I thought that's what I needed. Well, after dinner, it was dark. And so they wanted you to go find your cabin where the leader of whatever thing you had signed up for was going to be talking about next day's events. I didn't bring a flashlight. I didn't know where I was going. It's dark. It's in the woods, and all these little cabins are in the woods, and I had no idea where I was going. I couldn't find it. So I ended up in a storytelling event. And so the next day when I went to go to the sweat lodge, they were like, you can't do that because you are not there at the evening event. So you're not prepared. And I'm like, what? So the only thing they had open was this labyrinth workshop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess. And so I walked out the door of the dining hall, and this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, would you hold my drum? I can't take my drum in my workshop. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. And it was a black drum. I've never seen a black drum in my life, but the skin was completely black. So I walked with the group down to the river bank. It was a sandy beach, lots of pine and overhanging trees and things like that. But it did have enough sand, like a beach sand, that, the instructor could make a labyrinth. And he started using dowsing rods, just like this, dowsing rods. And he was trying to find the center of the labyrinth. Yeah. And then which way it should be facing. And so I'm like, okay, I don't even know what a labyrinth is. But I was fascinated with these rods going back and forth and him getting answers and saying, okay, this is where it should be. And I'm like, how does he know that? How does it know that? Why are those things moving? And they're moving opposite to the way he's walking. What kind of weird thing did I get into?
Yeah.
So we make the labyrinth, we draw out the lines and everything for the labyrinth. And he said, well, you've got the drum, why don't you drum while we walk it? And I'm like, I have no idea how to use this thing. None. I've never drummed in my life. He goes, oh, well, it's easy. And I said, well, here, you can take it. He goes, I'm not touching that thing. And nobody else in the group wanted to do it either. So I just said, okay, I'll try. And so I, he patted out a beat and everybody walked the labyrinth. And then he was showing everybody how you can use the dowsing rods to show somebody's physical fields, the physical, emotional, mental fields, and how much they had changed just by walking the labyrinth. And I'm again going, what is up with that?
So when you say their physical fields, like talking about their energetic fields, like of their bodies.
Correct. So you have 4 fields that surround your body. It's your emotional field is first, emotional, mental, spiritual, no, back up. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So each of those fields surrounds your body, and they should be in that order. When they're flipped, then you've had some trauma. Something's happened that you flip those fields because you don't want, it's kind of like a barrier. So you're trying to keep whatever happened away from you. So you're protecting that field that got damaged. So if you had, let's just say somebody mentally abused you. So you're going to keep that mental field not where it's supposed to be, but real close to your chest where nobody else can hurt you anymore that way.
Wow.
But when that happens, you're also messing up your electrical fields. Now, all I'm saying here is things I've learned after the effect, but as a newbie watching this happen, where the fields could expand, 3-4 times what they were before, my little eyeballs were like, whoa,
right.
How amazing is this? And I got totally enamored with the dowsing rods and dowsing. And then I met a lady at this same festival, and she goes, oh, well, I know a dowser, and she's giving classes. You want to go with me? Because I've always been interested in that. And that's what started my journey in dowsing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, and also what started your journey with the labyrinths,
yes,
which I so associate you with that. And oh my gosh, that's amazing how
the 2 things were exactly the same time, and I was supposed to be introduced to them, and they were supposed to be intertwined, which I found they are, through later learning. They're definitely intertwined. You have to find the exact center. You're looking for ley lines. So the fact that the 2 things are very intertwined, because labyrinths have to be laid and placed in accordance with the land and the land's energy in order to make them the most effective for people that are going to be walking them, whether that's a spiritual walk or that's a healing walk or in any number of other things. Because basically a labyrinth, what it does in a very quick synopsis, is it takes you right to the center of your being and connects you with spirit. Because as you walk those pathways back and forth, your conscious mind shuts down, because it makes no sense to walk away from where you want to be, where your center is or where your goal is. And so the conscious mind just shuts down. Well, when you get out of your conscious mind, you get into the unconscious. By the time you reach the center of the labyrinth, you're now connecting to the vortices that are there, to both all that's above and all that's below. And the 2 things connect within your body, right about center point of your body, which is your solar plexus. So, heart center, solar plexus, so that you become part of all that is, and you're in a very calm state. And at that point, magic happens, all kinds of things happen, and you can know the truth. You can see clearly because you're no longer embroiled in the emotional monkey mind, conscious mind, and connected to source.
That's profound. And labyrinths have been around.
Well, we have a carved one that predates human history. The stone predates human history. So how was it carved before humans were supposed to be around? Who knows? The other very interesting part of that is that your body, your DNA carries a labyrinth in the inner ear. It looks like a labyrinth. It does the same kind of thing. It translates sound wave into a pattern that your brain can recognize as language. So what's a labyrinth doing? It's getting rid of all this chaos and making a pattern for connection.
Right.
Because when you're in chaos and your conscious mind is going crazy, you can't connect to source. You can't find a calm place where your mind can make a pattern or make sense of anything. And that's what it does. In a very easy way. It's very easy to do it. You can even do it with a paper labyrinth. It's a very great tool to calm down that conscious monkey mind.
Or a coaster labyrinth.
Yeah.
like the one that you sent me. This is a particular one, but yeah, just as a visual for the folks watching. This makes so much sense to me. When you talked about that connection with the ear, and how it organizes information into language, like that we can
into pattern that the brain recognizes as language.
Yeah.
If you don't have that piece, if you're born without that piece, you can never have language. You can be taught, but you don't have the language. If you lose it, like in a car accident or something like that, where that is damaged, then you can regain language.
So when you walk a labyrinth or even just trace one on a paper, and it's organizing, like, how is it organizing patterns there? Like, it's not language, right? So then how would you?
No, what it's doing is it's calming down the conscious mind. So in other words, once the conscious mind stops churning, like, oh my God, I got to pick up the kids at 4 o'clock. I only have 5 minutes and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And how am I going to face my boss tomorrow when I tell him I can't come in? And, on these dates, and he's going to want me there. And then there's going to be a big fight and all of this stuff. And what you're really trying to do is just calm down so you can figure out you. Like,
right.
You just, you're actually, you can't function if you're going crazy like this in your mind. You're not functioning. So what it does is it calms that conscious mind down. The conscious mind has got to give up. So it's kind of like going on overload. But it's calming that down because the conscious mind is facing something it can't comprehend. You cannot walk away from something you want to go to. It's impossible. So the mind goes, okay, impossible, done. I can't figure that one out. I can't even come up with a monkey way of seeing that if I jump over these lines, but no, I have to walk it. That's
right.
Okay.
I just got what you were saying, because when you're walking a labyrinth or tracing it, you're walking away from the center, and yet you end up in the center. Right?
Correct. Every other way takes you away, not towards. And so it keeps the conscious mind at bay. And then the unconscious mind can center itself and answer the deeper questions, which is, why am I doing this if I don't like this job? Why am I creating more chaos in my life? Wouldn't it be simpler if I just formed maybe a mom's pickup group, and several mothers in the neighborhood pick a day and they pick up all the kids and drop them off? Then I wouldn't have to be rushing around and maybe getting into a car crash or anything else trying to rush to get my kid, and then feeling like a bad mother because I'm not there on time and my kid's the last one standing there with the teacher.
It's such a great example that you give, because it's like we can't see the solution when we're in monkey mind.
Monkey mind.
When calm all of that, that's when we can hear our intuition. That's when we can hear guides, guidance, ancestors, creator, all the things.
Yes. And when you get to the center, then your energy fields are all brought back into alignment because you are in that center pole of flow of energy. You're not blocking it in any way. And it's actually meeting from the earth to you and from above to you. And it's actually meeting in you. And you're the channel between the two because it's flowing back and forth between you. But your energy is going up, or the energy coming up from the earth is coming through you and going up. The energy from above is coming back down through you and into the earth. So that channel is now clear. And it's flowing through you. So all of your fields then come back into order. All of your chakras start to work in the correct pattern. You're not sitting there going, oh, this chakra is closed down. Okay, let's open it back up again. No, you just did it in a beautiful walk.
Yeah.
It puts you back in tune again.
It does. It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
So how did the dowsing fit in? Like, what are you looking for in setting a labyrinth?
Okay. So dowsing allows you to do that same connection that the labyrinth does, okay, with your tools. And it allows that consciousness to actually speak to you. So you ask a question and you get an answer, whether through your higher self connecting or however you want to see that connection happening. But the dowsing rods or the dowsing pendulum or the dowsing forks, whatever you're using, is actually giving you the visual of an answer, like someone talking to you, like we're talking right now.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at a space and I'm saying, okay, I want to have a labyrinth for children to play, to have a labyrinth to walk and to play with and to be on, where they can again find that calm state, but it's also for them. So it's a fun. I want them to have fun and I want them to enjoy this. Okay. Now I use the dowsing rods to say, okay, is this possible? So now I'm talking to the land, to the trees, to the rock spirits, to all of the nature spirits that live there. Is this possible? Will you support this? Dowsing rods tell me yes or no. If it's a no, we forget it. If it's a yes, okay, let's go forward. So if the land will support it, and I'm going to use land as a total of the area, everything that lives there or is there in that area, they have to support it. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Is that acceptable? Yes or no? Okay, and I'm dowsing all of this. Okay, if that's acceptable, then where is the center of this supposed to be for the highest and best good of all? Can't find the center. Okay, now what? Which way should it face? I get a direction. This is the way it should face. So when you get to the center of it, it should face a certain way. And again, we're talking about building this for kids. Okay, so you want them to have fun. So I would imagine that whatever way it's going to be facing, the kids are going to be seeing something that's going to make them giggle and laugh. Something funny, something cool or whatever.
Blab.
Well, yeah. Everybody wants to
I would have fun too.
Actually, there's a great one that was built in Saffron Walden, England, and it's built in their town park. And it's an interesting thing, but let's imagine it has that center that you have right there. The one that you showed, and then it has 4 little pods, so 4 little like feet on it. So when you walk it, you walk in and you end up in one of these little feet, but the little feet are actually conical. So the ground goes up into like a little cone. So you're walking kind of up in a little spiral, and then, you could roll down it instead of walk back down. But, it's kind of fun. Or you could just lay on the top of it and giggle and roll down. And I watched kids do this all day long, and they run around in it. So, and that one was built by children for children. It was built by a school a long time ago. Yeah. And it was built with kids built it, and it was a school thing. And it's in the middle of the town park. And it's a great labyrinth for fun, and it's a fun labyrinth. There's no way you can walk that seriously. No way. It's just too much fun.
It's like the playful energy.
Yeah, that playful energy is just in there. And that's how you keep using the dowsing. You're asking questions as to how to make this the highest and best good. How wide should the path be through your dowsing? And then you keep going. When we worked with one that you showed recently, that's a DNA labyrinth. So the runes in there are like vibrational symbols, and their purpose within the labyrinth there is that they will help to repair damaged DNA when you walk the labyrinth, and you will only get what you need from each one of those vibrations within that pathway. And again, you would dowse for that. So dowsing plays a very important part in all of this. It also, when you're building a labyrinth, you're also looking for ley lines going through there. Is there a ley line? Labyrinths use ley lines as energy conductors, kind of like wiring, and they wire themselves to other sacred places. So that's a cool thing to be looking for when you're building a labyrinth. And the way you do it is, again, with your dowsing rods to find, is there a ley line? Which way does it go? Where is it? What's its flow? Is it going north, south, east, west? How's it flowing?
Yeah. And for folks who might be new to a concept like ley lines, how would you define that?
Look at the human body. Okay, so you have a vein system, and those veins, the ley lines are the veins of the earth. So you would have huge ones, which are the arteries. You would have smaller ones, which are veins. You'd have tiny ones, which are capillaries. All of these form the body, or feed the body, now of the body of the earth, with impulses or electrical current, if you want to call it that. So it's a great way of sending a message around the world quickly.
Kind of like it could also be like a nervous system, but it's that.
Exactly. Like nervous system is the same thing. You have huge nerves, and you have smaller nerves, and you have tiny nerves, and all of that's connected. So you could do it that way. I mean, but dowsing allows you to find out information. That is the biggest thing dowsing does. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and the better information you get. It's a lot of practice. You can also use the dowsing in labyrinths to create special labyrinths for, we've now created labyrinths at hospitals. So those labyrinths, their purpose is to actually help people heal. So when they're going into a situation where they're going to go have surgery or whatever, they can walk a labyrinth. Again, it does the same thing. It brings you to that calm state. Very helpful in an operation. The calmer the person, calmer the body, the more relaxed the body, the better the operation goes. But dowsing is used to set that. It's to find out where the energies are in order for you to create something that works to the highest and best good of all and to your purpose.
Oh my goodness, there's so many juicy things to talk about here. One of the first things that you told me when I met you was the history of how dowsing got started, where this comes from. You tied it to the protecting wisdom, like the people who were carrying this wisdom.
Wisdom keeper.
Being the wisdom keepers, were being persecuted.
Okay. So let's go back even further to start,
Yes, please.
because dowsing is something that it's a muscle. Okay, let's just call it that. It's a muscle. Ancient peoples did not view the world the same way we did. They view the world as they are part of it.
Yes.
They're not separate from it. They're part of it. There is not a self which is individualized and not part of everything else. They do not view themselves as separate. So dowsing was a way, it's that innate knowledge or that muscle that was very, very strong back then, where they actually would ask for direction, ask for guidance, talk to the animals, because the animal was a brother, the bird was a sister, the land was part of them, not separate from them.
Yeah.
They were not walking on the land was allowing them to walk on the land. Okay, it was supporting their footsteps. So it's a whole different way, a whole different worldview than what we have now. As we come down the centuries, that muscle, if you want to speak about that muscle was not used as we became more self-oriented. I. As we separated from the us, we, and became more the I, those that knew things in the old way, it's called that, the old way, the original way of knowing things, that you're all connected. Those people were seen as the oracles, okay? The truth sayer who you would go to find out information. The women that would know whether you're carrying a boy or a girl, know it, because they asked, because they were part of. The unborn child is not a separate entity from the mother or the mother's mother or the mother's mother's mother. So that connection, that we are all one statement, allowed these people to ask questions and get answers. And as that became something that was looked on as, how did you do that? How did you know that? People became afraid of that ability. That's a good way of putting it. So, you start looking, coming down the centuries, people that could still use that ability and hone that ability became either magicians. Okay, look at Merlin. That's right. He was a dowser. Sorry, he was a dowser, and he used his staff as his dowsing stick. I mean, he really was a dowser. He knew information, he knew how to do things, and he knew how to move things, because he still had honed that ability of being part of everything. So if you're part of it, it's part of you. It's kind of like moving your hand. You're not separate from it. So you say, oh, I want to pick that up, and your hand picks it up, or your mind picks it up. Okay, and then keep coming down the centuries, and these men and women that had this ability became people that were scary, because you didn't want them to know whether you stole that piece of gold, or know when you slept with somebody else's wife, or know what you were going to do next, or when the weather was going to change, or where the well was, where the water was. So what happened was, we have the witch hunts, we have the persecution of wise women and men. And the way that they saved themselves was to become dowsers.
Yeah.
But dowsers for water, because everybody needs water. You're not going to kill the person that finds you water. And that's a big, huge way that they kind of went underground, and dowsing went underground. And when the organization was first started, it was all about water and wells. Because even though they talked about things that were unseen, unverifiable. And they dowsed for human energy fields, and they dowsed for lost and missing persons, and they dowsed for energy blockages, and they could do healing and things like that.
Absolutely.
They hid it under water because nobody's going to be afraid of that.
So is it the term that, because I'm thinking as you're talking about this, I'm like, oh, of course, because it, that persecution was also of Native peoples, indigenous
Yes,
peoples,
because they were closest.
and of course there are still wisdom keepers that have carried that thread of understanding through, often in secret, often so it's like this was something that kind of happened all over the world.
Basically, the term dowsing, the actual term, came from that old picture that you see of the dowser with we call it the Y rod. It's the one that comes together like this. And this is two sticks, basically you go pop it off of an apple tree, and you're walking around holding this branch, on two ends of it, where the branch comes together and is connected to the tree. And you're holding it like this. And when the branch, or when you walked over a water vein, that would pull down. So it dowsed, it went down, it dowsed. And that's how the name came about, is the actual use of the Y rod, that tool. The tool created the look of it goes down, it dowsed, it went down. The terminology, it changed, as you said, changes throughout the centuries as to what they were. You have the Oracle Delphi. We now know that the Oracle Delphi was a person that sat on the crossing of two ley lines, because we can douse for it. We now understand where that person was getting the information from. She was sitting right over the cross. So she was getting, if you want to think of it this way, she was sitting at the heart. So you have the arteries coming up, arteries going down, which meet at the heart. So she was getting all the information from the feet and the head, because she was sitting at the heart.
Right.
When they built the building around where the Oracle seat was, where the Oracle was sitting on this cross thing, because they wanted to build a beautiful building here. So the Greeks built this gorgeous building. What they did was they stopped the ley lines. And then the Oracle didn't work anymore, because the Oracle wasn't getting the information anymore.
No kidding.
No kidding. So that's why the oracles then stopped having the ability to be what you would call hitting the mark every time. And then you also have, there's many forms of dowsing. Yes, there are tools, but you also have hands-on healing. So you have a person that will just run their hands over a person's aura and can feel where blockages are, or can feel what's going on in the body. You have people like yourself who are body dowsers. Your body reacts. Your body's being pulled towards something good, pushed away from something that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, there's also, finger dowsing, using your fingers, to, if it's a true statement, you can do the pull, and you won't be able to.
Right. So like what people will call muscle testing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There's muscle testing.
Yeah.
How many holistic practitioners are now using muscle dowsing?
Right.
Is this medication or this herb going to be good for me? They hold out their arm and they're testing it. That sounds it.
Mm-hmm.
That's asking and using it.
Yeah. The more and more that I learned about it, the more I was like, oh, people are dowsing all the time, but they don't necessarily know or connect it with
the word dowsing.
That term. Yeah. Yeah. Completely. And the other thing too that I think is really interesting is dowsing is like, it's not meant to be just like the oracle sitting on the ley lines is giving you the answers. It's like, this is something that we can all do for ourselves.
Right. And remember, everybody did used to do it. Everybody did it, because you were all one organism in that worldview, and everybody did it. So you sensed when there was danger. One of the things I tell people when they they talk about dowsing. I talk about dowsing, and they're going, well, I don't douse. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Have you ever walked into a place you've never been there before? It looks like a nice place. There's nobody coming after you with anything. There's nobody arguing. There's nothing fearful about it. And you just know you've got a gut feeling that you don't belong here and you need to leave. That's dowsing. That is that sense of knowing where you're connected to source, your angels, your guides, whatever, and they're telling you, get out now. Something bad is here for you. Get out. You don't belong here.
Right. Or conversely, like walking into something or participating in something, and suddenly you feel this thrill through your body or something.
I'm home.
Yeah.
This word belongs. Yeah. Same thing.
It's like ding, 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 ding. More of this, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And that's that sense that we're trying to develop with teaching dowsing, teaching or having conventions. It's for people to develop their own personal way of dowsing to be able to access this information.
Now you're the president of ASD, the American Society of Dowsers. What I wanted to ask is, like, tell me a little bit about ASD.
Well, first of all, ASD is a 63-year-old organization now. It's a nonprofit volunteer organization. And the purpose is to teach dowsing and to promote dowsing and to do research on dowsing so that we can learn more about this ability that every human being has and the possibility of being awesome at. And so that the organization was started by a group of retired FBI, CIA intelligence officers that actually knew and felt that had experience with that there is information known, but it's not in the normal channels. And so they wanted to explore it. So they got together to explore this with farmers and other people that were experimenting with this stuff or knew these things. They used them in their own, if you want to call it, wisdom coming through their families. And it grew from there. My entry into it was that Spirit of Change retreat.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 years with a teacher. Her name was Terry Fedro, and she was awesome. Absolutely meticulously awesome. And what I could honestly say is she taught the art of the question. So it comes down to, in dowsing, is if your question is good, you will get a good answer. If your question is fantastic, precise, and to the point, you will get an answer that is fantastic, precise, and to the point. So that was her biggest strength. And one of the things that then I learned about the American Society of Dowsers and went to my first convention, and I was like, oh my God, look at all the things you can do with this. Like, people were talking about all kinds of stuff, even moving rocks, like talking to how do you build Stonehenge? Well, there's many different theories of how you build Stonehenge, but there was a wonderful druid that had come to that first one, and Ivan Macbeth was his name, and he used dowsing to talk to the rocks, and he said the rocks made themselves lighter so he could pick them up. Literally.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got chills.
And then I started going to every convention, or the next year, okay, that's my vacation, I'm going there. And then I met Joanne Van Gelder, who was researching the labyrinths and working with runes, and I met so many other people. And then I got asked to be on convention committee, and then I ended up getting on some other committee and some other committee and some other committee, and then I ended up getting on the board. And I've been on the board, and then through circumstance, I ended up, because I was vice president, I ended up as president. So here we are. Now we're going to changing again, because our new conference venue this year is the first time that the conference was ever held in a conference center. So this is a whole new thing.
That's cool.
That's
really cool.
It is cool. It's very cool. So it's constantly learning, constantly meeting new people that have done different things with dowsing than you ever thought you could do, and learning all these new things and learning more about yourself. It's a big self-empowering journey. It really is. Dowsing is a lot about self-introspection and self-healing, self-knowing. So gets what I'm going to call the little I self.
Mm-hmm.
When you then connect through dowsing to the greater all, or source, or all that is, or God, or goddess, or whatever you want to call it, it's a mind-blowing experience. Mm-hmm. But it happens through the technique of dowsing.
Well, you mentioned Joanne Gelder. Would you speak a little bit about that relationship between, or a little bit about runes and labyrinths? Because I know this is such a beautiful part of your work.
Okay, so we're going to go back again to our ancient history. If you recognize that you're part of everything, you also recognize that each thing is also an individual, like I spoke about a couple of seconds ago. The individual, and then the individual is part of everything. So you have I'm going to call it the small I, and then you have the big I.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and you go back and forth between those things. And Greg Braden called it walking between the worlds. You're walking between this world and this world of knowing, a sense of knowing. So back then, they recognized that you, Charisse, has a different energy than me, Sandi,
right,
than my cup, or my dog, or that tree over there, or that rock. And that rock is a different energy than that rock. And everybody knows this because they've been in gem and crystal shops, and you're drawn to a certain rock or a certain color of rock. And then when you're looking at all those rocks, you see one that just like speaks to you, and you've got to have that one. Okay. Because it's speaking to you. You want that energy. You recognize it, something you need. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I was going to talk to you about it, I would say, okay, that rock has the energy of, let's just say love, because it's easy. It's pink quartz. Okay? It carries the energy of love.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you symbolize the energy of love? What do we do?
A heart.
A little heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
You see a heart? Look at that. You see
a
heart?
Thank you, Zoom.
You love.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Thank you, Zoom. Okay, but you get love, and you understand the vibration of love. So runes are just a symbol of a vibration or a frequency.
Got it.
This frequency is now symbolized in the heart. Okay, so when you see the heart, you feel that vibration. You feel that energy. Mm-hmm. You know that energy. You connect to that energy. Does that make sense now?
Yes, it
does.
These
are just symbols, and they're ancient. Those symbols have come down through the ages also. This symbol means strength. This symbol means journey. This symbol means growth. This symbol means, because these were all vibratory frequencies that everybody could kind of agree on, that this is what it means. This is the heart. It means this, love. It's a symbol for that energy. Wherever it is, that's the symbol of it. And we could agree on it. These became runes. So if you take a labyrinth, which has, and I'm just going to use it this way. If you take a labyrinth, which has 7 circuits or 7 pathways, we're going to use the oldest one, which is a 7-circuit labyrinth. It has 7 pathways. Okay, they relate to your 7 chakras, the biggest ones. it also, if you're going to put it that way, then you also have the 7 colors of the chakras, right? So the labyrinth has the color, it has chakra, has the number of the chakra. It also has a vibratory frequency for each one of those pathways, or a tone, a sound. So you combine all that in the labyrinth. You've also connected we also have the connection between source and earth, okay, through you. Now you add a rune. So let's just say I want love. Okay. I'm going to put those little hearts. Where would be the best place to place that rune heart, okay, in the labyrinth? I would use my dowsing to make placement. And then people walking through the labyrinth would get that love vibratory frequency amplified and bathe in it. So now you're going to bathe your whole body in that frequency because you're in this labyrinth. So it's kind of almost like an ancient radionics piece of equipment, or a singing bowl is another way of looking at it.
Right.
So it's a singing bowl. You've put a witness in the center of it. So now it is sending out that love frequency. And not only is it sending it out to you, but it's also sending it out on the way lines. It's sending it out just like a radio frequency. You're listening to somebody's music on, the radio or on your iPad or wherever. You're hearing that frequency. Well, now you're being bathed in it. And you're also sending it out.
That's amazing. So it's like this, what you were just describing, it's like this layer cake of this resonant energetic signatures. For example, this one of, like, let's say we're showing the 7 levels, the 7 chakras, and then just infusing all of that with, say, the energy of love. Wow.
Of love. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
so you're basically you're a big, huge radio tower sending out love to the world.
Yeah.
Through the labyrinth.
So it's like when you bring in, say, runes, or even, it's so interesting because as you're saying this, it could be runes, but it could also be crystals. It could be, what is carrying that vibration. I think runes are particularly interesting. Just is that it's like it's like an amplification, focusing.
Yeah.
Is that all?
It's an amplification. Yep. Yep. And then when you talk about a runic labyrinth, which is what Joanne Van Gelder did, she saw, or was given, when she was on a labyrinth tour in England, she saw the runes being placed in the labyrinths. And then she got 100 dowsers to douse as to where each of those runes would be used or placed for the highest and best good of everyone who would walk the labyrinths. And that's how the runic labyrinth was born. She did that. He gathered all that information and created the runic labyrinth. And then we did the double runic labyrinth at Lindenville. I think that was like one of the last years. We put 2 labyrinths face to face that had the runes in them. And that was an amazing experience.
How do you get in it? I'm just trying to picture it. You know how, like, normally you have an entrance.
Right. So you have your 2
to expand my mind.
These are 2 labyrinths.
Okay.
Here's the entrance, and here's the But face to face would mean entrance to entrance like this, but there's a space in between. So now there's a figure 8 around your 2 hands. Yep, crossing right about, there's a space in the middle. So now you've added the infinity energy, and you've also added a vortex of center between the 2.
Wow.
Along with all these other energies.
Oh my
gosh. But the coolest thing about this is that so radionics is also the same kind of thing. The radionics people are using a machine to transmit a vibratory frequency that they have found through dowsing. I mean, they're using dowsing to find the correct frequency. And they're transmitting that frequency for healing or for any other purpose that they're doing this for. like Marty Lucas, who like was hired by a fishery because flocks of birds flying over the fishery were going down and eating up all the fish, because fish give off a frequency of fish. Well, now you got a pool of them and the fish can't get away because there's no stream.
Yeah.
And the birds were coming and having dinner. And then, of course, the fishery was losing all their product.
Oh my goodness.
So what Marty did was he came up with a frequency that masked the fish frequency and used his radionic equipment to mask all the pools. So when the birds flew over, there were no fish there because they couldn't sense the fish. The frequency of fish was gone and they didn't recognize fish.
That is amazing.
Okay. So the frequency, the radionics frequency it only goes out at a certain level. It doesn't change. The beauty of the machine is that frequency goes out at the same amount of amperage forever until the machine dies, unless you turn the machine off. Okay. With a runic labyrinth, the person walking it is only going to get the amount of energy that they need at that time for their highest and best good. So it can't overload you. It can't give you something you don't need. So in that way, the labyrinth, again, and this way of doing it is intrinsic to the human, okay, the human aliveness, if you want to call it that way, of anything, even if it's a dog or a cat or a kid or a bird or whatever have you. They can only get the amount of energy from that thing that they need at that time.
Wow.
It's not something outside of self.
Exactly.
It's very key to, it's kind of mind-blowing that if you just allow the earth and source, your guidance, allow them, not your conscious mind, but your connection and your spirit, to help you heal. You give it direction. You give you want to do, and allow it to help you through these things as a combined, unified way of dealing with issues and problems.
Wow.
Not as I'm going to tell you what to do. And
exactly. Right. Well, I think this is exactly it. And I mean, you just helped to answer a question for me. It reminds me of, like why wouldn't it work to just have a machine kind of like sending this vibration out? And to your point, it's like what happens with the human body. It does work great. And when you have the human body that's communicating with the labyrinth, the runes, all that, like that, that
all that is
and collaboration is why, because it's like what works for one person won't work for another person. We're all
correct.
Different.
Exactly. That's why you have dowsers that use pendulums. You have dowsers that use, L rods. You use your body.
Right. You have dowsers that use nothing at all. Right. Exactly.
One size doesn't fit all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But the other part of it is too, that just realize, that each thing has its place and its part to play, like a play.
Agreed.
So there is no way that we could keep that frequency over those fish ponds without that machine, because you would never know when they're going to come across, and you're going to never know what kind of bird they are. So that works great there. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to deal with an individual and you're going to deal with the actual land and the animals and and the spirits and everything else, well, you know what? There's such things as, I'm tired today, or it's nighttime, or it's, all my energy is over here because, there's something over there going on. You don't have that same amount of amperage every minute of every day. And that's why the machine does its job and does a really great job for what it does. And the labyrinths do it a different way.
Mm.
They both work. They both have their places. They work great together.
Oh, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Is there any last pearl of wisdom, if there's that one thing that you would love for people to remember from our talk today, what would that be?
Learn to douse, because when you learn to douse and you feel that connection, you feel connection. It's your connection. And that connection can help you through life in a more fulfilling way, a happier way than anybody outside saying, you need to do this, you have to do this, you have to be this, you can't be this, you can't do that, you can only do this. Use the dowsing to find truth, your truth, not somebody else's truth.
Thanks for joining me on Wise Body, Ancient Soul. I hope it reminds you how magical and powerful you truly are. Kindly subscribe, rate, and review this podcast so more juicy light bringers like you can hear these transmissions. And if you're looking to connect more deeply with your body and soul's wisdom, visit CharisseSisou.com to learn how else we can play together. Here's to your joy and wild success. From my heart to yours, I love you. Take what you need and pass it on.